pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everyone. Let the record show that all members of the City Council are present. There is a copy of the Open Meetings Act posted in the meeting room on the west wall and is accessible to members of the public at any time during the course of this meeting. First item on the agenda, it's my pleasure to issue a proclamation congratulating Beatrice High School graduate and resident Chris Lofing on his co-writing, directing, and editing and producing of a major motion picture that was released last week, known as The Gallows. The proclamation reads as presented to me. Whereas Chris Lofing graduated from Beatrice High School in 2009 and went on to attend the New York Film Academy in Los Angeles, California to pursue a career in filmmaking. And whereas Chris is co-owner and co-creator of Tremdendum Pictures, a California-based film, television, commercial, and viral marketing production company. And whereas Chris has co-written, directed, edited, and produced a major motion picture, The Gallows, released nationwide and in over 50 countries. Now, therefore, I, Stan Worth, Mayor of the City of Beatrice, do congratulate Chris Lofing on his accomplishment of co-writing, directing, editing, and producing of a major motion picture, The Gallows. Witness my hand and the official seal of the City of Beatrice this 20th day of July, 2015. Is there anybody here representing Chris Lofing and The Gallows? Okay. Okay. Well, I have a proclamation. We will present it to him at that time. All right. Thank you. All right. The next item on the agenda, it's the consent agenda. All items under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the Beatrice City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen so requests. First item on the agenda is item A, approve agenda as submitted. Item B, receive and place on file all notices pertaining to this meeting. Item C, receive and place on file all materials having any bearing on this meeting. Item D, approval of minutes of regular meeting on July 6, 2015 as on file in the city clerk's office. Item E, approval of Treasurer's report of claims in the amount of $363,677.91. Item F, approval of Boswell report of claims in the amount of $18,360.75. Item G, approval of write-off of ambulance bad debts. Item H, approval of change order number 4, increase in the amount of $4,664.93 to Elkhorn West Construction, Inc., for the Beatrice Public Library renovation. Item I, approval of change order number 2, increase in the amount of $5,600.78, and the final contract price of $44,791.22 to Top Coat, Inc. for the Armor Coat Paving Project number 15-001, as recommended by the Board of Public Works. Item J, approval of change order number 1, a decrease in the amount of $559, and final contract price of $46,789 to Goosen Construction, Inc. for the Lake Ridge Sanitary Sewer Improvement Project number 15-004, as recommended by the Board of Public Works. Item K, resolution number 5796, granting permission for the Beatrice Humane Society to hold a doggy dip evening fundraiser at the Big Blue Water Park on September 9th, 2015. Item L, resolution number 5797, approving the request from Main Street Beatrice to close Highway 136, which is also known as Court Street, from 4th Street to 7th Street on Thursday, October 29th, 2015, between 4 p.m. and 7:45 p.m. for the Night of the Great Pumpkin event. Item M, resolution number 5798, approving the request to close Highway 136, which is also known as Court Street, from 6th Street to 7th Street on Friday, July 24th, 2015, between 4 p.m. and 9 p.m. for the special screening of the movie, The Gallows. Mr. Catlin? Any items that anyone wants removed from the consent agenda? And Mr. Cook and Mr. Claybaugh will abstain. Mr. Cook from item K, Claybaugh from item L.
M, please.
You would like M removed? Okay. Okay. Anyone else?
All the items listed on the consent agenda with the exception of item M be approved, accepted, and ratified as presented.
Second.
It's been moved by Catlin, seconded by Kerr, that the consent agenda be approved with the exception of item M. And Mr. Cook is abstaining from K, Claybaugh from L. Your vote, please. And that is approved 8-0.
Mayor, I move that resolution number 5798, approving the request to close Highway 136, which is also known as Court Street, from 6th Street to 7th Street on Friday, July 24th, 2015, between 4 p.m. and 9 p.m. for a special screening of the movie Gallows. Be approved, accepted, and or ratified as presented.
Second.
It's been moved by Catlin, seconded by Mr. Cook, that resolution number 5798 be approved. Discussion.
I have a question on this. Just, do we have a policy of when we do close highways or wish to intervene with anything? Or is it just random, whoever asks gets it?
It's one of those that when somebody asks, and ultimately it has to make the decision of both the mayor to get on the agenda and then this council for approval, so.
I was kind of curious. It's during Fair Week, of course, and you got race cars coming through, pulling trailers. You have a lot more traffic coming through for all the events out there. I'm not trying to belittle the process of the good job he did doing this, but we don't do this for celebrations of a doctor becoming a surgeon or a serviceman becoming a captain or something. I just don't know if we need a policy sometime to outline this rather than just random.
We certainly can draft one.
I'd like to see it. I mean, I would hate to have someone come up next week when Joe wants to have something else in front of his place and it's closing down the main highway. I would understand if we wanted to close down 7th Street, which would a roundabout way would have, relate to the theater, but
Okay.
I'll vote for it, but I'd like to see a policy or something in place a little more specific of what we do ask for.
Okay. Any other discussion? Anyone from the audience? All right, we have a motion on the floor to approve this. Your vote, please. And that is approved 8-0. Mrs. Lofing has come in to the council chambers. I did issue a proclamation, and I'd like to present you with that proclamation. Oh, there's Monty. Thanks for coming. Okay, there are no public hearings, no bids to be opened. Next item is a resolution implementing the Beatrice Trail Lighting Program to detail the process for lighting the city bike trail system.
Mayor, I move that resolution number 5799 be passed and adopted.
Second.
Moved by Catlin, seconded by Fairbanks, that resolution number 5799 be passed and adopted. Discussion.
Mayor?
Yes, sir?
This is something I proposed, and it. Let me back up just a minute. I really hate politics, and this has kind of turned into a political thing, unfortunately, because it never should have been. It's a good project. It'd be a good program, and I sat back and looked at this, and I thought, when I brought it up, I thought, how can we do something in the community? Every day when I get up, I look at my day ahead and I try to decide what can I do in my life to make myself better today. And then the same thing I do with the city. I look around the city every time I'm through it, every time I drive through it, I look around and think, what can I do? What can I do as a councilman? What can I do as a citizen? Improve this thing. without much damage, or without much of a bump. And so, and this is one of those things. Is it going to change anything if it passes or doesn't pass? Probably not. I talked to one of our businessmen in town, and he told me that when he's trying to bring clients or somebody into town, he takes them around the community and he shows them the new school and he shows them the trail system and he shows them our beautiful parks. And he said, I've never had anybody say, I'm not going to bring business here because you don't have the trails lighted. And he makes a good point. But it got out in the paper that the city was going to spend $1 million on this. And once that's out there, it's kind of like the toothpaste is out of the tube. It's completely inaccurate. It's not. And what we've got here tonight for you to vote on is really a watered-down version. This is basically 2 blocks of this. And so it's not even a mile of the lighting system would be about $42,000. This is about 2 blocks of it between Ella and Grant, so we're talking just about $6,000. And I'm not asking the council tonight to take $6,000 out of the operating budget of the electrical department. I'm asking you to take $6,000 out of their cash reserves that are over $6.2 million. I just want to take it and have a look at it and try. And I talked to Rick last night, and I got off the phone with him, and I was really frustrated with the whole thing because I thought, it's not going to pass. It's not going to. Don't have a shot at this. And I thought I'd put in a call to the mayor, and I thought, I'm just going to have him call and put it off the agenda. I don't need the frustration. And then I thought about it, and in my tenure here, had I done that, and I had other councilmen do that, I remember David fighting so diligently for the camping pads in the park, and he had to fight for that. And Dwight fought for the dog park and the things that go along with that. And in the past, I fought for the water park and the Westcott Ball Diamonds and the improvements in Hannibal Park and the trail system itself. And I thought, it's ridiculous to just pull this off and not have you guys actually make a vote on it. Like I said, I'm not asking you to spend $1 million. I wouldn't do that. It's absolutely absurd. And the notion that this is $1 million from the electrical department fund that we could use for streets or anything else, that's absurd too. It's ridiculous to think that you could do that. We can't use this money for the sidewalks, can't use it for the streets, can't use it for the curb and gutter, can't use it for the sewer department. We can't use it for any of that. We can use the electrical department funds for electric lighting, which is what this is. I'm asking you to make a $6,000 investment in your community tonight, buying electrical lights to improve a linear park in the city of Beatrice. That's all it is. Short and sweet. So, Mayor, with that, I'd like to call the question.
Okay. Once the question is called, there's not much we can do. Okay?
Absolutely not. Thank you,
Is
Ted.
that correct,
for calling the
Counselor?
I think we have to have a vote on it.
You gotta have a second.
Yeah, and a
question.
second.
You have to have
vote.
a second on the call of question.
Okay. And Mr. Cook has seconded that we call the question.
So the vote means what?
If you vote down calling the question,
Yes. But if you
then we
just
continue
yes,
discussion.
You will discontinue discussion.
No, he can't call the question, and we can have
And
discussion
we just keep
on this.
having discussion, and then somebody,
Right.
when discussion runs out, we
I
vote.
also want discussion on it.
So, on calling the question, your vote, please. And that is,
Turn yours off.
Turn yours off.
oh, there we go.
maybe turn it back on.
4-4.
It's 4-4. I'm going to vote no, that we do not call the question, and that we have further discussion. Okay? All right. Rich?
Ted said that it turned political. Anything we do here is political. Any program, anything we do is political. And he said $6,000 is what this is going to cost. According to the city's figures, for 2 blocks, $100,000 a mile is what the figures that I was given that this thing cost. So this thing's going to cost us right around $40,000 to $50,000. Well, Ted, shake your head if you want, but that's what they told me it was going to cost. So I think your figures are a little off. And Here, a few weeks ago, you stated that you had two questions you always asked yourself, whether it would benefit the city and whether we can afford it. Well, there is another question that you have to ask yourself as a councilman, as a representative of the taxpayers, and that is, what does the public want? And that enters in, and that, I believe, is the most important question we have, because we are representatives of the public. And in the last month on this thing, I have had more phone calls than I've had on almost anything I've ever voted on, and I have not had one positive response on this thing. Everything has been negative. It will cost us $1 million to do the entire thing, and I think the public should know that. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to vote no. I'm going to vote with my constituents and the taxpayers of the town, because this is what they want. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Further discussion?
My thoughts are too, I've gotten no positive feedback on this. And my thoughts are too, if we have this much money available to do something like this, I think we need to cut back on the payments that the tax or the ratepayers are making. If we're able to spend between $6,000 and over the course of 10 years, $100,000 or $1 million, maybe we look at how much we're charging people to collect that much.
Ted?
If anybody else, I just want to finish. Okay. This is $6,000. Okay.
No.
Well, just
All
let
right.
him finish.
This
okay?
this is roughly $6,000 worth of materials that the city is going to purchase, that the city electrical department would install. Okay. Now, had I done this differently, had I politicked it and gone to the Board of Public Works board and handed them and talked to them and said, I'd like you to do this, and talked to the electrical department head and said, this is a good project, and would you run it through the Board of Public Works, and had the Board of Public Works make a recommendation, and they told us that it was something that they could afford, we would have got a recommendation from them with the total cost of this without the labor involved. I can give you half a dozen examples of when we got something like that, when we got something from the Board of Public Works, or we got something from administration, that this is what the cost of the project is, because this is what the cost is. Paying our people, they're already getting paid, their salaries. If you don't figure that in, this is $6,000 for 2 blocks of this. I'm asking you as a council to make a $6,000 investment in the city of Beatrice out of a fund that you have $6.2 million plus in. This isn't even their operating budget. This is their revenue. And that's all it is. That's the long and the short. If we're not willing, when I spoke with Rick last night, one of the reasons, and I know one of the reasons that he came on the council is because we as a body, we as a community have kind of stalled over the last few years. And I tried to explain to him, and I didn't do it very well because I was kind of irked. But the reason that one of the biggest reasons that we've stalled as a community is we quit spending on ourselves. If you own a business and you quit investing in your business, you stall and you fail. On a personal level, if you quit investing time and energy into yourself, you stall and you fail. And that's what I'm asking you to do is, I looked at this and I thought, here's a project that everybody can get behind, and easily, inexpensively, without raising taxes, without raising fees. And like I said, had it not been presented to us that to do the entire thing would be $963,000, which accurately is not $1 million. Had there not been a headline in the paper that said the city's going to spend $1 million, you had to read the article closely to see that it wasn't really that was going to be over a 5 or 6 year period in total terms, and that as Tobias told you that night, we're not taking away from any other projects for this. There won't be any overtime. This is something that the electrical department can absorb within their duties. It doesn't change that. And I don't want to back and forth with you, Rich, but it's only political when we make it political. It doesn't have to be. There's a huge difference between being a public servant, and being a politician. I've always felt that I've fallen into the category of a public servant. It would be difficult to explain to the population that we're going to spend $1 million to light a trail system. It's not very difficult for us as councilmen to explain that we're going to light a 2-block section and spend $6,000 out of a fund that we have $6.2 million plus in.
Okay. Joe, did you have something?
That's all I have, Stan.
Well, I was just curious too, why, in this proposal, you're doing, this 2-block section goes from Grant Street to Ella Street. That's already lit.
I know.
So why'd they pick that area?
That wasn't my choice. That came from the city.
I kind of like the lights that are up there now, I think.
Yeah, I do too. I would have had proposed this. If I was only going to do 2 blocks, Joe, I would have done it Grant North, the 2 blocks that aren't lit.
And I too got an awful lot of calls at home. Had people stopping down the store, all negative about it.
Yep.
As a runner, I would love to see the trails lit, but there again, I have a light that I wear morning and night, so I didn't get anybody that spoke to me positive about it, unfortunately.
Rich?
I have a couple of questions for Tobias. How much does a transformer cost if it blows?
A transformer,
Yeah, a big one.
you can spend $250,000 on a transformer pretty easily.
$250,000. Say a tornado goes through here and takes out half of our wiring and a bunch of transformers like it did a few years ago. Do we have insurance to cover that?
You would have insurance and FEMA that you would look to for
Does the
reimbursement.
insurance pay that bill immediately, or do we have to pay the bill and then wait for the insurance to come up?
The best example I can give you was the lightning strike. The insurance company was down. They did issue a check rather quickly for not all of the cost, but a big portion of the cost to help us start buying replacement parts right away. I would assume it'd be a similar thing with the scenario you indicated.
The reason that cash reserve was put in there was when that tornado came through and devastated this city here a few years ago. We started to put a cash reserve in so that we could make sure that our electrical department and stuff was brought back in and online immediately. You save for a rainy day, and that's why that's there. And as I said, that's I just don't think, for years we took out of the electrical department for little projects, and like I said, as a public servant, you do what the people tell you to do, and they've told me to not vote for this, and that's what I'm going to do.
Okay, anybody else have a comment? Anybody else? Anybody from the audience? Okay, gentlemen, I think we're ready to vote on this. We have a motion and a second. Your vote, please. And that has failed 7-2. 6-2, beg your pardon. So resolution number 5799 has failed. Next item is resolution number 5800, entering into a contract with Steve Bragg for animal control services.
Mayor, I move that resolution number 5800 be passed and adopted.
Been moved by Catlin. Seconded by Kerr. That 5800 be passed and adopted. Discussion.
As we have talked about before, this contract with Steve Bragg for Animal Control Services is set to expire here at the end of this fiscal year. We have presented you with a contract that Mr. Bragg has agreed to. The only changes in it, other than updating the address and the terms, those kind of things, is you'll see on page 40 of your packet is item U has been added. Basically says that he will assist with removal of non-domesticated animals when he believes it's a safe situation. It also indicates that if you live trap on your own property, he is not responsible for removing your live trap that you placed on your property. Outside of that, the contract is identical to the previous contract. 3-year term, same dollar amount.
Comments? Questions?
What does it really mean, the assist citizens with the removal of non-domesticated? Help me with that. If somebody traps a raccoon or something on their place?
If you call in and you've got a possum that's living underneath your porch and you need to have it removed,
Yeah.
it'd be a non-domesticated animal. If he feels it's safe, he'll help you get it out of there. If he has to crawl in head first, he may say, Ted, no thanks, but no thanks. I'm not crawling in there any farther to go get that thing out.
You first.
Yeah.
And trapped animals, he will not, if you trap them, you remove them. He doesn't.
We've also, I think, Mr. Bragg's also had a request to get up on rooftops and do some stuff in chimneys and things like that. It's not really the best thing to have him doing, so.
So
We've
essentially,
left that to his discretion.
so essentially, there's just a certain thing, at a certain point, he's drawn a line.
Yep.
Okay.
We'll allow him to pick where that line goes.
All right, any other?
I had a
Rick?
couple people call me and had some negative comments on Steve, and then then I went ahead and checked with the chief of police and sheriff's department and Humane Society, and I got nothing but glowing reports on his job. So I think he is doing a very good job. Everybody seemed to be pretty pleased with how he's doing. I had one person, though, ask about certification. And looking through here, he's certified on the gun. They would like to see him more certified, go to a, Humane Society would like to have him go to a weekend certification process for animal control. I don't know if that's a possibility that you've already done that? Or they weren't aware that you had done that, the Humane Society? So that's all included in everything that they were talking about? All right.
It would be probably a thing of past, because they want to make the tranquilizer used a class 1 drug, and now it's class 2, and it's class 1 at vets, in order to apply it, so they probably will not be using the tranquilizer.
Okay. There's in here somewhere on number 7, assignment. When you have somebody else that handles your calls, you said sometimes somebody.
Steve, you want to come on up and answer the questions? Thanks. Shorten that distance just a little bit, Mr. Cleveland.
When somebody handles your calls, do you have to approve them through the city then? Is that process happening then, Tobias?
The dispatch is contacted and told of that number. Captain Lampkin is advised, and the city office, administration office is advised who's on call.
Okay. Do we have to approve that person? Is that the way that reads, or?
Right, and I mean, most of the people he has, or at least some of the people he has that cover for him when he's on call, are police officers that we have.
Okay,
So-
police officers.
Who are off duty.
Off-duty police
Right.
officers sometimes handle his calls for him.
And not always, but I'm the only one, there was no police officer certified with the tranquilizer gun.
Okay.
So I'm the only one that can use it, so if I'm gone, that's not an option.
When do you think that's going to be phased out, Steve?
It was supposed to have been last year, but I haven't heard anything. It's really hard to get it now as a class 2 because I have to get it from a veterinarian, and they're assuming responsibility, giving me 100 cc's of the date rape drug is basically what it is. And I have
what?
I have to document every cc I use.
I see.
If I get pulled over by anybody in law enforcement and I have this basically illegal drug that I'm in control of, and half of it's gone and I only showed I used 10% of it, they want to know where it's at.
Sure.
Technically a legal drug, it's a controlled substance.
Yeah.
Don't want people to think that
A
Steve's
class
driving
two,
around
the
something.
class 2 drug, I'm authorized to use it.
Yes.
But if it becomes a class 1 drug, no.
Don't misquote him.
Now, the county calls you sometimes too to do some work? Okay. Does that happen very often?
Not very often, but it's usually the 2, 3 o'clock in the morning calls.
Okay. So it doesn't affect your ability to do anything for the city?
No, they know that city comes first. You know, if
Okay.
I'm halfway to Blue Springs and I get a call from the city, I'm turning around. You know.
All right. They didn't realize you did anything for the county or anything, so.
Ted?
So Steve, in a situation that you've drawn the line or something, under the house, and you say, I'm not going to get that. still has to be removed. I mean, you say, I'm not doing that. You just turn over to the homeowner, or do you contact the local police department? You say, you need to send an officer out here, and they need to deal with it. I mean, what is that? I hadn't given that any thought until tonight, and I know it's kind of an off-the-cuff question, and I could have asked it earlier, but I didn't really think about it until just now. And so it in that scenario, it's still a problem. I mean, that person made a call to you for a reason, and so what happens?
It depends on the situation when I get there. 90% of the time you can look at the residence and tell it's unsafe to go into.
Yeah.
You don't even go up on the porch. And times I've been sent to a resident, they call me back before I get there and, don't approach it, wait for an officer.
Okay.
But there's been after dark calls that we've discussed with the police department that I shouldn't even been in the house, So now, 90% of the time, 97%, I do not enter a home without an officer.
And those calls are few and far between.
Yeah, that might be one a week.
Oh,
Yeah.
that'd be more than I thought.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
certain
I just thought, I just had this mental picture of some 80, 90-year-old single person living at home and call you, and you get there and say, I really can't help you. Leave you to your own devices. And I just...
There was one scenario that I was called to a trailer house. The elderly lady wanted me to tear her ductwork apart because there was something in there.
eh,
And a mechanical service here in town told them to call me. I says, I'm not assuming that liability. If your trailer burns down tonight, I'm the last one that was messing with it.
yeah,
So
I can see that.
she had to make that decision to call a mechanical service.
Okay.
Any other questions from the council? Anybody from the audience? All right, we have a motion on the floor. Your vote, please. And that is approved, 8-0. Resolution number 5800 is passed and adopted. Thanks, Steve. There are no ordinances. Next item is the public forum. The purpose of the public forum is for the presentation of an item by the general public to the City Council for consideration at a later date. No discussion or action will be taken by the City Council at this time. Is there anyone here on the council that has something for the public forum? What about the audience? Okay. Next item is discussion and reports, and first up is Engage Financial Report. Glennis McClure, Engage Director.
Yes, thank you. I didn't include financials. It's primarily a report. But if you have any questions about financials, let me know. So, you did receive a couple pieces, I believe, in your packets regarding Engage and what we've been up to this last quarter, the quarter April through June of 2015. I've included for you. We've done a lot of work on sort of evaluation measures or metrics, and so there's a sheet that is two-sided that talks about, I guess things that are probably important somewhat to measure in economic development. And so started to try to track the individual projects. And again, if you know of the things that are going on, it was helpful to us, led me to the city inspection office for looking at the permits, and also talked to the county, the county planning and zoning office for some information. But I thought it was interesting that primarily activity within this last year, you're looking at $18.8 million of investment, and then try to also attach some job creation to some of that. And of that, $12.2 million, and this is county. This is the major things in the county that I could put my finger on. But we've got $12.2 million in progress. So some of those projects are in process yet. Kind of indicated for you that through the quarter, again, this is just looking at, and those expansions, that's not just quarter, by the way, that would be within the last year. So those wouldn't just be things that just started within this last quarter. Open projects, you can see the sort of the volume of what we're handling in that, those that are looking at small business development, and, how many came to my office, and we're trying to track. Responses for requests, those would be, we get for example, from the Economic Development, State Economic Development Office, we get deals that come through, and we see some of the preliminary information. We don't always know the exact business, who it is, what it is, but they're looking for certain qualifications, and we've got a template, and we try to address what this community has to provide for those inquiries. And so, looking down, I've got, at the end of June, I roughly figured about 8 open projects, and as I looked at that list today, they're still out there, but I would say 6 are pretty promising type projects. So that first page is just some rough, if you'll notice, we pulled information from various places, but the section towards the bottom of the front page has to do with the kinds of evaluation measures that we were asked when we did the recertification for economic development. And so I'm just kind of trying to track that on a quarter-by-quarter basis, which will make things easier for final reports, and even 3 or 4 years from now when we have to start looking at recertification. So, and in the flip side of that, the labor force data on page 2 there is just updated for you, and of course, usually those are a month or 2 behind as far as information. But we had, an unemployment rate in May of 3.2%, and the state is at 2.6%. And then the rest of that information on page 2 is really just annual information. So that's information that I'll get at the end of the year. So you also receive then, and some of this is reiteration, I guess, of what you saw in this other report, but a narrative then as we go through our 6 objectives that Engage has and what we've done to address those objectives. I would say it was a pretty busy quarter visiting with companies, and prime employers are those that are usually the manufacturing or the key employers, and then I just classified 16 other area businesses, and that doesn't count those that are inquiries or small businesses that have come to seek assistance. I made a few notes here to visit with you about, but I would say if you look at our unemployment rate, which it really is low, anytime I think it's 4% or less, and you really are struggling somewhat with finding workers, but our unemployment rate's a little bit higher in the state, and I think it's also, I just looked at a report that came in from Department of Labor, and again, those are usually a couple years behind, but I think that as the recession started to fade away, we have more jobs here in this county. It was a county information, but we have about 3,000 folks that come into this county for work. We also have about 5,000 that leave, so we have a net of 2,000. I guess I would say that that's probably could work in our favor if we're looking at attracting some other large businesses here. So if we've got folks that are leaving, can we attract them back with some good jobs? So I look at it that way. I think also, I want to mention that as I've been out and about and was able to go to the Community Venture Network, I've attended 1 trade show so far and looking at a couple more this year. But it's a very, very competitive market out there, and we do have a couple facilities here that are really good prime facilities, and there are folks, as I look at 6 possibilities yet, there are folks that are, kind of starting to zero in on some of those. So it's going to take a lot of work, a lot of teamwork to get those companies in. It's a very competitive nature out there. Again, I think our housing, what we found out from our housing study, and we're waiting for NIFA approval for the application that was sent in, and I should hear from that any day now. But we had a good meeting, I think, with a group of folks that is, as far as the study committee goes, and I think there's a lot of interest in what we may find from that, and so that'll be a lot of work this next quarter as we dig into that, hopefully. But I think just doing the things that to improve the community and make it an attractive place, I think those are really, when you think about what, competitiveness out there, we've got to look for every sort of nook and cranny, things that we need to be attractive for companies and folks to look at living here and working here. So I brought along copies, and I'm sorry I didn't send this earlier, but going back several months, over the winter, we spent some time with the ECAP, Entrepreneurial Community Activation Process. And as you know, one of our objectives is to work with small business and entrepreneurial development. And This program identified 8 characteristics for what does a community need to do to really embrace entrepreneurship and small business development. And we surveyed about 500 folks across the county. And then here in Beatrice, we probably had 20 to 30 folks through several, I'd say that was average, probably 25, community conversations where we sort of dug into the data and looked at what we needed. And I would say sense of place characteristic came out as a very top priority as we looked at what folks said about the communities. And most of it was Beatrice, but we had some that took the survey from Wymore and some other communities. So I've been talking with those village boards about this information as well. But so I'll share this with you. Again, the Chamber and Main Street, worked with me on this, and it was very helpful, I think, for them to help promote and get the information out. And I would, I'd like for you to take a look at the report and let me know what questions you have. But sense of place came up pretty high. Again, having a community vision, I know you're looking at doing a strategic plan. I think those things are very, very key. For all of us, leadership, having the leadership in place to support small business entrepreneurship, all of that is very, very key. And even just having entrepreneurial support systems in place. And I think, again, in my position, and I would welcome you to send folks that, if they're looking, considering, want to expand businesses, have them talk to me. I'm not here to say that I have all the answers, but I will try to find resources to help them. So. Questions that you have from the report that you saw, if any.
Gentlemen, any questions? Glynis? Anybody?
I really sincerely appreciate your support, as does our Engage board, for continuing the support that you provide financially. And I think you've also seen that our board did decide on investment membership levels, and that information is getting out. So I had one sort of outside company, one of our resource partners today, say yes, they will be glad to invest in what we're doing. So hopefully we can have the community get behind that and continue to do that. So, all right, thank you, and stay in touch as you have ideas or questions.
Rich?
This isn't a question or anything, but over the years we've had reports, and I just want, I probably say this every time, Glynis, but thank you very much. These reports are very thorough, and it keeps us more in touch with you guys than we've ever been.
Well, thank you.
So thank you very much.
It does take time to try to keep track of on a day-to-day basis what I've done. There's a lot of moving parts, but I appreciate that, and hopefully we're headed down the right direction to make some good things happen. So.
But it is very thorough, and we do appreciate it.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Glynis. Appreciate it. Okay, last item on the agenda is City Administrator's Report. Tobias?
Once again, I'm happy to answer any questions. Just a couple of highlights. I would note that baseball season, softball season, I believe, has finally ended. I know we finished up just last week with my son. You'll see in the report that Mr. Pethoff says he has 240 teams that played softball or baseball out at Hannibal Park for various tournaments this last summer. You also note that he had 95 teams he had to turn away because of the flooding and lack of facilities. And so when you talk about an impact that the flood had, there's one that some people don't see, and obviously the corresponding revenue those teams would have brought back into the community. Note that many of you probably saw the boring project that was going on at the South 6th Street underneath the river. That project went well and is nearing completion. We had a water main that had been attached to the side of Highway 77 there, and over time it's starting to have some wear and tear on it. And so rather than putting it back on the highway, we bored it underneath the river. But that project is, like I said, nearing completion and should be moving forward. Finally, I would note that as part of the flooding, the wastewater treatment facility had a large amount of water that they took on through I&I infiltration and inflow. And the guys have done a great job going back out and studying the system, trying to find where this extra water is coming from. One of the places they found was up in Riverside Park. What they found in Riverside Park, where there were some pipes that were just open, the old sanitary sewer lines that just seemed to go back to what I'm sure were houses at one day. But as the river came up, those pipes just flooded with water, and it just came down the system. And so they're in the process now of installing some valves so that if the river starts to rise in again, they can come shut these valves off and basically section off Riverside Park, so that water then doesn't come back into the plant, and essentially we don't have to clean storm water before we put it back into the river. So they've done a lot of work trying to find those locations out there, doing some lining projects, doing some things like that. We're getting lined up to help us eliminate those problems in the future. Other than that, any questions?
That's our main drain for Riverside. Yes, I have one, Mr. Mayor.
Rich?
Where are we sitting on that grant for the playground equipment for Scott Street Ball?
Funny you asked that.
We were awarded back on the 14th, actually, $40,000 from the Thomas Foundation. We received our letter just this morning. And so I believe we have a total contribution between them and Exmark of $65,000. And so that will be contributed towards a ADA compliant playground system out at Scott Street Ball Fields. And then with extra city funds, then we'll cover up any addages and extras, and then we may also install the padding and then the concrete walkway around that padded area and a few other additionals pending how much funds we have. So.
Okay, thank you.
See, there's quite a few orange cones around town. I see at Sixth Court, they've been doing a lot of nice work on the sidewalk area there by the building. What about 407? I haven't heard much at all on it in a long time.
407 Court Street, we're still working with the adjacent property owners, trying to get all the agreements signed. I believe that she will be here in 2 weeks, at the next city council meeting, I should say, to talk about that project as we move forward.
That's been, how long's that been yellow taped off?
6 months?
Or longer?
Yeah.
All of that. Just something that shouldn't be out in the street for that long. If it's worth barricading out, maybe we should do something about it, but
Well, again, we're trying to get the paperwork signed so that we can do something about it.
thank you.
Any other questions? Any questions from the audience? Okay, with that, our next regular scheduled meeting is August the 3rd, and we will not have a work session this month. Okay, Mr. Catlin, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mayor, move that the meeting be adjourned at 7:45 PM.
Second.
Been moved by Catlin, seconded by Claybaugh, that we adjourn the meeting at 7:45 PM. Your vote, please, and that is approved 8-0. Thank you, gentlemen.